An organization is subject to pressures for change from far more sources than we can discuss here. Moreover, it's difficult to predict what types of pressures for change will be most significant in the next decade because the complexity of events and the rapidity of change are increasing. Let's take a look at forces for change. The four areas in which the pressures for change appear most powerful involve people, technology, information processing, and communication, as well as competition. There are many different forces for change that affect organizations. One major force is people. Demands for different training, benefits, workplace arrangements, and compensation systems are abundant. Not only is technology changing, but the rate of technology change is also increasing. More education and training for workers at all levels, more new products move faster to the market. Speed also impacts change. Faster reaction times, immediate responses to questions, new products, different office arrangements, telecommuting, marketing, advertising, recruiting on social networking sites, and so on. Advances in information processing and communication have paralleled each other. Global competition means more competing products with more features and options, lower costs, and higher quality. Although competition is not a new force for change, competition today has some significant new twists. First, most markets are global because of decreasing transportation and communication costs and increasing export orientation of business. These four pressures can cause organizations to change in different ways. Kurt Lewin suggested that efforts to bring about planned change in organizations should approach change as a multi-stage process. His model of planned change is made up of 3 steps: unfreezing, change, and refreezing. In Lewin's 3-step model, change is a systematic process of transition from an old way of doing things to a new way. Inclusion of an unfreezing stage indicates the importance of preparing for the change. The refreezing stage reflects the importance of following up to the change to make it permanent. Unfreezing is the process by which people become aware of the need for change. If people are satisfied with current practices and procedures, they may have little or no interest in making changes. The key factor in unfreezing is making employees understand the importance of a change and how their jobs will be affected by it. The employees who will be most affected by the change must be made aware of why it is needed, which in effect makes them dissatisfied enough with current operations to be motivated to change. Creating an employee awareness of the need for change is the responsibility of the leadership of the organization. Change itself is the movement from an old way of doing things to a new way. Change may entail installing new equipment, restructuring the organization, or implementing a new performance appraisal system, anything that alters the existing relationships or activities. Refreezing makes new behaviors relatively permanent and resistant to further change. Examples of refreezing techniques include repeating newly learned skills in a training session and then role-playing to teach the new skill in a real-life work situation. Refreezing is necessary because without it, the old ways of doing things might soon reinsert themselves and be forgotten. For Lewin, the process of change entails creating the perception that a change is needed, then moving towards a new, desired level of behavior, and finally solidifying that new behavior as the norm. The continuous change process model incorporates the forces for change, a problem-solving process, a change agent, and a transition management. It takes top management perspective and highlights the fact that organizations today, change is a continuous process. A more complex and helpful approach is illustrated in this figure. This approach treats planned change from the perspective of top management and indicates that change is a continuous process. Although we discuss each step as if it were separate and distinct, it's important to note that change becomes continuous in organizations. Different steps are probably occurring simultaneously throughout the organization. This model incorporates Lewin's concept into the implementation phase. In this approach, top management perspectives that certain forces or trends call for change, and the issue is subject to organizations' usual problem-solving and decision-making processes. Usually, top management defines its goals in terms of what the organization or certain processes or outputs will be like after the change. Alternatives for change are generated and evaluated, and an acceptable one is selected. Early in the process, the organization may seek the assistance of a change agent, a person who will become responsible for managing the change effort. The change agent may also help management recognize and define the problem or the need for the change and may be involved in generating and evaluating potential plans for action. The change agent may be a member of the organization, an outsider, such as a consultant, or even someone from headquarters whom employees view as an outsider. An internal change agent is likely to know the organization's people, tasks, and political situations, which may be helpful in interpreting data and in understanding the system. But an insider may also be too close to the situation to view it objectively. An outsider, then, is often received better by all parties because of his or her assumed impartiality. Under the direction of management of the change agent, the organization implements the change through LEWIN'S unfreeze, change, refreeze process. The final step is measurement, evaluation, and control. The change agent and top management group assess the degree to which change is having its desired effect. That is, they measure progress towards the goals of the change and make appropriate changes if necessary. The more closely the change agent is involved in the change process, the less distinct these steps become. The change agent becomes a collaborator or a helper to the organization as she or he is immersed in defining and solving the problem with members of the organization. When this happens, the change agent may be working with many individuals, groups, and departments within the organization, or on different phases of the change process. When the change process is moving along from one stage to the other, it may not be readily observable because the total involvement of the change agent in every phase of the project might differ. Throughout the process, however, the change agent brings new ideas and viewpoints that help members look at old problems in new ways. Change often arises from conflict that results from the change agent as they challenge the organization's assumptions and generally accepted patterns of operation. Through the measurement, evaluation, and control phase, top management determines the effectiveness of the change process by evaluating various indicators of organizational productivity and effectiveness or employee morale. It is expected the organization will be better after the change than before. However, the uncertainties and rapid changes in all sectors of the environment make constant organizational change a given for most organizations. Transition management is the process of systematically planning, organizing, and implementing change, from the disassembly of the current state to the realization of a fully functional future state within the organization. No matter how much planning precedes the change and how well it is implemented, because people are involved, there will always be unanticipated and unpredictable things that will happen along the way. One key role of the transition management is to deal with these unanticipated consequences. Once change begins, the organization is neither the old state nor the new state, yet business must go on. Transition management also ensures that business continues while the change is occurring. Therefore, it must begin before the change occurs. The members of the regular management team must take on the role of transition managers and coordinate organizational activities with the change agent. An interim management structure or interim positions may be created to ensure continuity and control of the business during the transition. Communication about the changes to all involved, from employees to customers and suppliers, plays a key role in transition management. Organizational development, sometimes called OD, is a system-wide application of behavioral science knowledge to planned organizational strategies, structures, and processes for implementing an organization's effectiveness. 3 points in this definition make it simple to remember and use. Let's take a look. First, organizational development involves attempts to plan organizational change, which excludes spontaneous, haphazard initiatives. Second, the specific intention of organizational development is to improve organizational effectiveness. The point excludes changes that merely imitate those of another organization, are forced on the organizations by external pressures, or are undertaken merely for the sake of changing. Third, the planned improvement must be based on knowledge of behavioral sciences, such as organizational behavior, psychology, sociology, cultural anthropology, and related fields of study, rather than on financial or technological considerations. Organizational development is initially treated as a field of study and practice specifically by OD professionals. However, as an organization's change becomes the order of the day in progressive organizations around the world, it became clear that all organizational leaders needed to become leaders and teachers of change throughout their organizations if organizations were going to survive. The most comprehensive style of organizational change involves a major reorientation or reorganization, usually referred to as a structural change or a system-wide management of task division and authority and reporting relationships. Another system-wide change is the introduction of quality of work-life programs, defined as to the degree to which members of a work organization are able to satisfy important personal needs through their experiences in the organization. Quality of work-life programs focus strongly on providing a work environment conducive to satisfying individual needs. Organizational development is based on a systematic change process and focuses on managing the culture of the organization. A commonly held view is that resistance to change needs to be overcome, but that's not always the case. Resistance to change can be used for the benefit of the organization and need not be eliminated entirely. By revealing a legitimate concern that proposed change may harm the organization or that other alternatives might be better, resistance may alert the organization to re-examine a change. 6 major organizational sources of resistance include overdetermination, narrow focus of change, group inertia, threatened expertise, threatened power, and changes in resource allocation. Of course, not every organization or every change situation displays all 6 sources. Organizations have several systems designed to maintain stability. Such a system is said to be characterized by overdetermination or structural inertia, in that one could probably have the same effect on employee performance with fewer procedures and safeguards. In other words, the structure of the organizational procedures resistance to change because it's designed to maintain stability. Another important source of overdetermination is the culture of the organization. Many efforts to create change in organizations adopt too narrow a focus. Any effort to force change in the tasks of individuals or groups must take into account the interdependence among organizational elements such as people, structure, tasks, and the information system. When an employee attempts to change his or her work behavior, the group may resist by refusing to change other behaviors that are necessary complements to the individual's altered behavior. In other words, group norms may act as a brake on individual attempts to behavior change. A change in an organization may threaten the specialized expertise that individuals and groups have developed over the years. A job redesign or structural change may transfer responsibility for a specialized task from the current expert to someone else, threatening the specialist's expertise and building his or her resistance to change. Any redistribution of decision-making authority, such as with re-engineering or team-based management, may threaten an individual's power relationships with others. If an organization is decentralizing its decision-making, managers who wielded their decision-making powers in return for special favors from others may resist the change because they do not want to lose their power base. Groups that are satisfied with current resource allocation methods may resist change and believe that it will threaten their future allocations. Resources in this context can mean anything from monetary rewards and equipment to additional seasonal help to more computer time. These 6 sources explain most types of organization-based resistance to change. All are based on people and social relationships. Many of these sources of resistance can be traced to groups or individuals who are afraid of losing something, resources, power, or comfort in a routine. Individual sources of resistance to change are rooted in basic human characteristics such as needs and perceptions. Researchers have identified 6 reasons for individual resistance to change: habit, security, economic factors, fear of the unknown, lack of awareness, and social factors. Let's take a look. First is habit. It's easier to do a job in the same way every day if the steps are repeated over and over. Learning an entirely new set of steps makes the job more difficult. For the same amount of return or pay, most people prefer to do it easier rather than harder. Security. Some employees like the comfort and security of doing things the old way. They gain a feeling of consistency and safety from knowing that some things stay the same despite all the change going on around them. People who believe their security is threatened by a change are likely to resist it. Economic factors. Change may threaten an employee's steady paychecks. Workers may fear that change will make their jobs obsolete or reduce their opportunities for future pay increases. Fear of the unknown. Some people fear anything unfamiliar. Changes in reporting relationships and job duties create anxiety for such employees. Employees become familiar with their bosses and their jobs and develop relationships with others within the organization, such as contact people for various situations. These relationships and contacts help facilitate their work. Lack of awareness. Because of perceptual limitations, such as lack of attention or selective attention, a person may not recognize a change in a rule or procedure and thus may not alter his or her behavior. People may pay attention only to things that support their point of view. Social factors. People may resist change for fear of what others will think. As we've mentioned before, the group can be a powerful motivator of behavior. Employees may believe that change will hurt their image, result in ostracism from the group, or simply make them different. People tend to resist change for a variety of reasons. Organizations and managers who effectively overcome this resistance will likely continue to keep abreast of their competitors and remain viable organizations. But organizations and managers who do not deal with resistance may be contributing to the eventual demise of the organization. Organization change occurs when business strategies or major sections of an organization are altered. Keys to managing successful organizational change and development include the following. Consider global issues. Keep in touch with the latest global developments on how change is handled in different cultures. Take a holistic view of the organization. Anticipate the effects of change on social systems and culture. Start small. Work out details and show the benefits of the change to those who might resist. Secure top management support. Get a dominant coalition on the side of change. Encourage participation by those affected by the change. This minimizes transition problems of control, resistance, and task redefinition. Foster open communication, which minimizes transition problems of resistance and information and control systems. Reward those who contribute to change, which minimizes transition problems of resistance and control systems. In the current dynamic environment, managers must anticipate the need for change and satisfy it with more responsive and competitive organizational systems. These 7 keys to managing organizational change may also serve as general guidelines for managing organizational behavior, because organizations must change or face elimination. A learning organization is an organization that facilitates the learning of all its members and continually transforms itself. In a learning organization, continual learning and change become part of the culture. One of the best ways to encourage continual learning is through after-action review, or a professional discussion of an event that enables discovery of what happened, why it happened, and how to sustain strengths and improve on weaknesses. After-action reviews are conducted for both successes and failures and occur after any identifiable event or milestone during a project, or after the project is completed. The purpose is to never assign credit or blame, but to carefully identify the circumstances that lead to successful and less successful outcomes to enable learning. Learning from an after-action review is usually by the group and for the group, although individuals can also conduct such a review. This review is usually conducted fairly quickly using a simple process. In an open and honest meeting, usually lasting 30 minutes or less, everyone who participated in the event or project discusses 4 simple questions. What was supposed to happen? What actually happened? Why were there differences? And what did we learn? Building trust and team integrity are additional outcomes of the after-action review. A learning organization is an organization that facilitates learning of all of its members and continually transforms itself. In a learning organization, continual learning and change become part of the culture. To facilitate organizational learning, it is important that learning happen during a project and continue after the project ends.